Welcome back to the Monday Morning Point Guard podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be recapping and talking a little bit about the Christmas Day games. If you do like the video, please consider giving us a like, also subscribing for weekly content. And then if there's a spot that you agree or disagree with, throw it in the comment section. We'd love to discuss it with you. I guess first things first, let's kind of talk about some of the COVID stuff. I tried to avoid talking about it as much as possible, but it seems like half the teams in the league or more are missing 75% of their guys. So the league has added like this hardship contract, which is like a 10-day contract to just get a warm body in the building to kind of help out. And there have been some really funny names kind of thrown out there. Kind of before this all happened, I thought it might be fun to have like an expansion draft from the Big Three League. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I think that was part of staying in shape for those guys is just to be ready if something ever happens, and it's kind of worked out for Joe Johnson at least.
Yeah. Or I also had the idea that the owners should have to play the Christmas Day games, and you could have done like each owner has to play 25 minutes a game, and they have to be on the court at the same time and guard each other. I would have loved to have seen Lake Up and Sarver square off in that Golden State game.
Yeah. I want to see Pat Riley in sneakers and just see what he can do.
Yeah, that would have been great. Any funny signings that kind of stuck out to you? I have a couple listed. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I mean, Joe Johnson was funny because he's been retired for so long. But I know he's been in the Big Three, so I guess he's been getting reps in at least. It's always funny to see Brandon Knight on a basketball court.
Oh yeah, still. Hilarity is always to ensue when he's on the basketball court. He's been on the receiving end of some of like the all-time posters. Yeah, Joe Johnson has been like, I think he's a little overqualified for that Big Three league. I didn't really watch it this year, but I know he was just kind of dominating game in and game out. I mean, at his height, and he still has like a lot of skill. There's just, Katino Mobley is not really going to be able to do much with him. Lance Stevenson was one that I thought was like really funny to see him back. He played 14 minutes for the Hawks in that Hawks-Knicks game. Also, I don't know if you saw the Hawks picked up a guy named Cat Barber.
I didn't see that one.
That's his real name, like CAT Barber. Charlie Brown was also picked up. Shaq was picked up by the Grizzlies. Shaq Buchanan. Stanley Johnson, I thought the Lakers, he played like a ton of minutes in that Lakers
night. Yeah,
I know. I thought he was out of the league for sure, but I guess he was until this happened. But he didn't look terrible out there.
No, and Darren Collison, he's been retired for 2 years. I never thought I'd see him again.
I think that was probably for the best that we didn't see him again. He looked really bad. Emmanuel Mudiay was also another one. Sacramento Kings picked him up. I was glad to see Isaiah Thomas get another chance.
Yeah, if that's what it took, then that's what it takes. But yeah, IT back in the league is overdue.
I think he's played well enough to get a chance with another team. I saw the Lakers today announce they weren't picking him back up. I think the writing was kind of on the wall when they decided to pick up Collison. But yeah, I mean, he had some good games. I think the last couple were like complete disasters, but we'll kind of talk about the Lakers and like why that may not all be his fault in one of the games here. I want to see Michael Beasley back. I will never understand why that didn't work out. He has all the skill. He's like so well suited for this modern era of basketball. A guy who can rebound. He doesn't defend, but like doesn't really seem to stop a lot of guys in the league. And like, dude can score. Like he can score and rebound. Like that seems like that would be valuable to somebody. He's still pretty young.
Yeah, top of my list is Jamal Crawford. I think he should be on a team even without COVID. He had a 50-pointer like 2 years ago.
That's a good one. That's a good one too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see him on a team.
Any interest in J.R. Smith making a return?
I think he's too consumed with golf at this point, honestly. We might see him on the tour one day.
He's been tweeting that he wants to come back. Mario Chalmers is one that I kind of selfishly want. I miss him.
Yeah.
He signed with the Nuggets G League team, I think. So he's playing G League for them. He was in the Big Three. If he's going to come back, he has to go back to the Lakers. I just want to see LeBron just screaming at him game in and game out. It'll really take me back to the Miami years.
I would love to see Kendrick get suited up. I know he tweeted about that. That would just be comical for everyone.
I want him to get out there because I think he misremembers how good he was. He really seems to think he's like a legendary player. And I mean, I guess he was a starting center in the league for a while, but I think it was more like for most of the teams, it was kind of starting out of necessity rather than him actually bringing much to the table.
For the sake of his journalism career, it's probably best that he doesn't get on the basketball court.
Oh yeah, that would kill his credibility. For any kids that are like watching that didn't watch, I don't know what 10 years ago when he was really playing, like they probably think Kendrick Perkins was like this really awesome like defensive player, and he was good on defense, but like I don't know, I'll never forget the Thunder running like the first 2 or 3 plays of the game when he was in OKC for like Kendrick Perkins post ups, and it was like rarely anything that looked anything remotely competent whenever he would get the ball with the block. Monte Ellis was
He's
one of my
he
was one of my favorite players. He's only 36.
Yeah, I don't see the harm in seeing what's up with him.
No. I mean, he's been out of the league a while now, and that was weird. Like he just kind of he seems like he's pretty well suited for like this new era, but I guess teams weren't really interested in him because he's not that great of a 3-point shooter and kind of inefficient shooting wise. But like if he was your third, fourth guard coming off the bench a couple years ago, now it'd be a bit of a stretch, but I think that could have worked. Swaggy P, any interest in Swaggy P?
I mean, why not?
Why not throw him out there
in the league? Yeah.
Yeah. I think the J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters combo from a couple years ago can't be beat. But if you've got Swaggy P,
maybe
Swaggy P and Kendrick Perkins, I think for as far as like boneheaded plays, I think they would compete. Nate Robinson's only 37. That'd be fun.
Absolutely need him back.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to bring J.R. Smith back, you got to bring Iman Shumpert back too.
Oh yeah. Michael Beasley was the top of my list. Did you have anybody else you kind of wanted to see come back? I guess Isaiah, now that he's not really on a team.
Yeah, I've been wanting him in the league for 2 years. I don't know, how old is Danny Granger? Like 37, 38. I don't know if he could even keep up, but
yeah, I think his knees are shot. I mean, that was a weird one too. I mean, he was like all-star and then like kind of just buried on the end of a bunch of teams' benches for like the remaining 5 years he was in the league. I mean, he was on a Lob City Clippers team one year. He was on the Big Three Heat one season. Like there was some weird.
I knew that about the Clippers. I knew that about the Heat. That's
I think he spent some time on the Clippers. I may be wrong, but I'm like 95% sure because they brought in Turgaloo too around the same time, and it was like they brought in Hito and Granger, and it was just like how is this going to work? And
I wonder if Vince Carter got approached by anyone because he's only been out for a year by now, but I mean he's in his 40s.
Yeah, I think it would be good if he did because he was the color commentator on the Knicks Hawks game, and it was not good. It was not good. No, he stutters a lot, but aside from that, he just doesn't really have. And it's his first year doing it, so I'm not going to kill him too much. But he doesn't have like a good understanding of like when to talk and when to shut up. Because there was like a play in the game where he was just rambling on about how thankful he was to be like calling a Christmas Day game, and like Julius Randle buried like a deep three and he didn't like acknowledge it at all. He just continued on. So then there was a timeout. Everybody's like to the bench and Vince Carter finally stops talking. And then the announcer goes, "Oh, and a 3 by Julius Randle," as if it had just happened, even though like Julius Randle is sitting on the bench already for the timeout. Yeah, I guess we'll dive into the Knicks and Hawks game. So Knicks fans chanting F Trae Young like before the game started. I mean, I think that's a bad look for Knicks fans. I think it's fine.
I think it's textbook. I think that's exactly what to expect from Knicks fans.
I think it's fine if he's at the game, like warming up, but he wasn't even there. He was sitting on his couch at home. Like I think you're thinking about him a little too much. I think
he's definitely in their heads, and I feel like that's going to come around every time they visit the Garden.
Yeah.
For Trae, that's probably a good thing. He knows he's in all their heads at this point.
Well, we are kind of setting up here for a potential Hawks Knicks, play-in game situation. The Knicks are in the 12th seed currently, so they're on the outside looking in. They got off to a hot start to start the year, first couple of weeks, but they've really just fallen off a cliff. The Hawks in the 10th spot, I'm shocked by that, but I'll kind of get into that after we talk about the game a little bit. So the Knicks kind of jumped all over the Hawks to start the game. I mean, they were just hitting every single three. The Hawks kind of gutted it out, cut it back to 10 at half. At halftime, the Knicks were 9 for 12 in the paint versus the Hawks 7 for 20. The Hawks were shooting like 35% overall at halftime, so it's just a bad shooting game for them. They didn't have Trae Young. They don't have Gallinari. They don't have DeAndre Hunter. Like, they were missing a bunch of guys. Second half, at the very beginning, the Hawks kind of cut it to 5, but then the Knicks just kind of buried them in a barrage of threes. I'm just kind of like, it's just kind of an ugly game. Like, overall, I think the Hawks ended up with like 87 points. Kemba Walker, triple-double. First Knick triple-double on Christmas Day. That was nice to see.
That's surprising.
Yeah, I know. He's not thought of as much of a rebound guy. And they were trying to get him that 9th rebound, but the one he ended up getting, like, it was a legit rebound. It wasn't like a Russell Westbrook rebound. Yeah, it was fun to see him. I mean, he shot the ball really poorly, but I guess for the rest of the stuff, Randall, 25. I mean, he had 23 points with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, and then 2 points the rest of the way. Also 12 rebounds. Mitchell Robinson, who I just love. Every time I see him play, I know he drives some Knicks fans kind of crazy. I mean, he had 5 blocks tonight. I think he's just kind of ill-suited for this Knicks thing, like fit-wise with their roster, but for the Hawks, Collins and DeLon Wright, 20 each. Cam Reddish was really bad. 4 for 15, 1 for 8 on threes. Oh, they got to the line one time. And then I mentioned Lance Stevenson, 14 minutes. So,
so he did get some time.
Yeah, he got a lot of time, actually. He was out there for a while. I was like, he was actually pretty well behaved too. Like, he wasn't taking any ridiculous shots. He was kind of moving the ball pretty well. I mean, he wasn't noticeable out there like Darren Collinson was, where it like didn't look like he belonged on the court. Like, Stevenson looks like he can give you some minutes. I don't think he's doing anything other than like keeping the ship afloat, but like, I think it's fine especially for the hard times contract or whatever they're calling this contract.
Yeah, the hardship exemption.
Yeah. So the Hawks, I had them as the 3rd seed in my preseason predictions. I'm not looking too good on that. They're 15
I think I had them up there as well, probably.
I think you had them as the 6th, maybe
6. Yeah, that one's not looking great either.
No, it's not. 20th in the league in points allowed. So that's not been great. They're allowed field goal percentages in that range too. So they're just not really playing defense this year, which is what they were doing during their hot streak last year. 2 less free throws a game for Trae Young. That's pretty big. The rule change has really affected him. And I think they just have an overcrowded rotation. Like, I was kind of going through the guys that they have when they're at full strength. Obviously, it's not an issue right now. But like, you start listing off like the guards. You've got Young, DeLon Wright, Lou Williams. I guess you could throw Herter in with the guards. That's 4 guards who are, Trae Young's probably getting 35 minutes a game. If you're, probably more, but I think you could get away with giving him 35. And then the rest of those guys are 20 to 25. That's not a lot of minutes to go around. And then the wings are even more crowded. Like, if you go for like the 3 and 4 position, you've got Gallinari and Hunter and Reddish and Collins. I guess you can kind of put Collins at the 5, but I don't know. I don't know how much you're really wanting to do that. And then you've got Bogdanovich too. Some of those guys are wanting 30 minutes a game. Others are wanting at least 20. So I think they should be kind of in the market for wanting to make a trade, like trade up to like get a star player. I guess the issue for them is there's just not a lot of people available who kind of fit that billing, and teams that are looking to cash in like a star player for some depth. I mean, the Lakers are the obvious team that would be wanting some depth, but
Westbrook and Trae Young together would be just horrific.
They don't have anything that they want. I guess Ben Simmons is still there, but like, I don't think the 76ers are getting really excited about Bogdanovich and Gallinari or whatever package you want to throw together for that. So I don't know. The Knicks, I mean, I've kind of talked about the Knicks a lot, and nothing has changed with my opinion of them. Like, they need a primary playmaker, closer, shot maker, something to kind of, you know, glue the offense together. I mean, right now, as they have it, like Randall is like being asked to create off the dribble from like the top of the key. It's like, it's so weird. It just seems like such a misuse of his skill set. Like, you don't, I don't feel
I
like
think
you want.
that needs to be like RJ Barrett's job. I think if you're gonna really want him to step up and be that guy, he needs to be the one to make the playmaking and get the shots at the end of the game. If you're not going to put Randall, you know, where he's really going to do well.
Well, I think Randall is like fine to go to, but I think he's better suited like posting up or cutting to the basket or screen and roll, dives to the rim, like kind of like the way they use the Warriors use Draymond a little bit, for like, at least for the screen and rolls. Like, obviously Randall offensively is a lot better than Draymond, but like Randall's a decent passer. He's a good decision maker. I just like, he's not creative dribbling the ball. He's not going to like create space off the dribble as much as he is just going to bulldoze into people. And I don't know. It's just weird. I don't have a lot of nice things to say about Thibodeau as a coach. I think he's probably one of the more overrated coaches we have in the league. Do you have any strong thoughts, good or bad, about Thibodeau?
I mean, the first reaction whenever I see a Thibodeau signing is like, oh, they'll do decent in the regular season. If they make it to the playoffs, they'll be so tired they can't even finish a game. So I think we kind of saw a little bit of that last year too. I think they were gassed by the end of the season because I think Randall actually led the league in playing time.
And
that's just a Thibs thing.
In that Hawks Knicks series, I mean, he looked like he had tired legs even at the beginning of those games. And this season, there was a Nets Knicks game that the Knicks were in. Like, they should have probably won the game. And it was earlier in the year. Randall came out in the second quarter. He plays the entire first quarter every game, it seems like, at least every game that I've watched. And then he came out a little bit in the second quarter, and he basically played the entire second half. And then it got down to crunch time, and he turned the ball over, missed some shots. The jumper was flat, and it's like, and the announcers were kind of killing him for that. And I'm like, well, what? He's played 45 of 48 minutes so far. Like, what do you want him to do? He's gassed. Right. Looks like he needs an oxygen tank. No, Thibodeau, I mean, you're going to get some wins in the regular season, but it's going to come at the cost of like any hopes of having any playoffs, or for like young players like Derrick Rose, it's going to come at the cost of their career. I kind of blame him for what happened there. Luol Deng, you can absolutely blame Thibodeau for what happened to him. I mean, after he left Chicago, he was like out of the league, still pretty young, but that was after leading the league in minutes for like 10 straight seasons.
Right.
So the Knicks benched Kemba Walker, but now he's playing again just out of necessity because of all the COVID stuff. I know he's a liability on defense, but it seems like Mitchell Robinson can kind of cover up for him. Like, Kemba's could contest a three. I mean, he's not keeping people out of the paint, but that's why you would have Mitchell Robinson. So if you played them together, I think you can get away with playing Kemba. What do you think about the Kemba and Fournier signings now? That DeRozan is kind of killing it in Chicago, because that's basically the Kemba and Fournier contracts could have easily just been DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, I think they'd probably go for DeMar if they had to do that over again.
Yeah, I think you always
Fournier's been disappointing. As there's games where he's really hot and just doesn't miss anything. And I think Kemba, they just have him at a rough time where he can't stay healthy and he's kind of struggling to fit into that team. But yeah, I think they would take DeRozan all over again if they had the option.
Kemba's not a Thibodeau guy. I mean, it's just not a guy Thibodeau's gonna like. But yeah, DeMar, I mean, I don't think anybody was really killing them at the time, but like, you always want to sign the better player rather than, you'd rather have a dollar bill than two 50-cent pieces, or 4 quarters, whatever. And DeMar is like exactly what they need, like a playmaking shot maker. Like, he's a really underrated passer. I think he's kind of been showing it this year that like maybe maybe he should have been regarded as a better playmaker than we kind of thought of him as just an ISO scorer. But there's a lot more to him. Extend an olive branch to the Knicks fans. I mean, I like the players individually on this team. I like Mitchell Robinson. I like Grimes. I like Toppin, RJ Barrett. I like Randall a lot, but I just don't like the way they use him. So there's really not a lot of guys that I dislike. I mean, maybe Fournier, but he kind of is what he is. He's a streaky shooter, and he can do a little bit off the dribble, but not really. I don't know. And Kemba, I mean, I don't think he's the problem here, even though it seems to be where Thibodeau wants to point the finger.
Hopefully this ends the slander of benching him. And I know New York's not where you want to be slandered. So coming off the bench and 44 points, then I think getting 29 the next game, now a triple double. Hopefully he'll get, some more respect.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully they can move him, but I doubt it. There's not a lot of teams that are going to be interested at his price tag, like $8 million a year.
Is he still on that max?
No, the Thunder waived him, so he signed a 2-year 17 something with the Knicks. So he's like $8 million this year, $9 million next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the Bucks Celtics game, that was a real thriller. I missed the first half, so I don't really have a lot to say about the first half.
Yeah, I mean, Boston was hot. And that's kind of what they've been doing this year, is they'll get hot and then just completely forget what to do in the second half or the fourth quarter, I guess, for this game. Milwaukee also looked just incredible. I think I had them in the finals again. I think they're still really solid in the East.
Yeah. I know you've not watched many games this year, but so this is kind of like some overreactions on your part. Any overreactions to either the Celtics or the Bucks?
Yeah, my overreaction is break up the Jays. I think it's time.
It's time. Wow. Yeah, I talked about them earlier in the season. I kind of went back through NBA history, and I'm like, how many wing tandems have won NBA titles where your wing players are the best players? Because if you think back to when Kawhi and Paul George got put together, we're like, this is a championship waiting to happen, and it's just kind of never happened. The examples I found were Curry and Clay, if you want to consider Curry a wing player. I don't, but as an honorable mention, I guess. Then you have LeBron and Wade, Michael and Pippen.
That's probably where I would start, the last wing pair.
Well, there was one before that, and I think it's debatable just because I was not alive and I didn't watch a single game of this team, but it was Rick Barry and Jamal Wilkes in the 75 championship. I don't know that Wilkes was their second best player, but it looked like he was just at a glance. But I think at least with LeBron and Jordan and Pippen, you had one guy who was a playmaker. LeBron, for as good as he is, he's more Magic than Jordan, at least with the way he plays, his play style. Skill set wise, I think Magic and LeBron are completely different, but their MO is setting up teammates. Yeah. And then Pippen was kind of the same way. He was he was one of the first point forwards we had in the league. And then Wade and Jordan respectively were more geared towards scoring and putting up a bunch of points. So with Tatum and Brown, you don't really have that guy to be a playmaker.
You don't see many games where both of them are shooting very consistently and scoring a lot. It seems like it's one or the other most times. This game they actually both had 25. But overall,
that's not
I don't
enough.
think it's 50 points between two of them won't win you games.
No,
in the East especially.
You have to get to 110, 115 to win in today's league. So you're less than halfway there. Their offense.
I just don't think they mesh well together.
I don't know if it's their fault. I think they're kind of both. I don't know what you can do besides trade one of them, but just because there's not a lot of valuable pieces here to kind of move for somebody who's going to make a difference. But their offense kind of devolves at the end of games. It's a your turn, my turn.
Yeah. And
one thing I've really noticed watching them is they get a lot of good movement, player movement, early in possessions. And then once Tatum or Brown get the ball, it's well, mission accomplished. Everybody just go stand in your corner. And there's no movement after one of them gets the ball and they're forced into a tough step back three or like pull up jumper, or like it's
Yeah.
very bizarre because like I said, the movement's really good up until like one of them touches the ball and then everybody stops.
Yeah. I read a stat that Tatum, I don't know how they keep this stat, but Tatum was one of the top guys with the most jump shots that were contested last year. I think that has a lot to do with it. Once they run their plays and get their sets, everyone else just stops moving, and then it just becomes one on one, and you'll get a contested jump shot.
I know they didn't have Schroeder here, but he's really not changing things, at least for their issues. Like they just need a point guard, and not even a point guard, just somebody who they can kind of use to like run the offense through and make things easier for Tatum and Brown. Um, so like Sabonis is a guy that I think you could use for that because he can pass the ball pretty well. You would have to kind of be really creative with how the offense runs because you're not going to have him bring the ball up. I don't think if you're really looking to effectively use him, but like you could run him I like the high post as like a playmaker. I think it could work, but I think that Tatum and Brown like running screen and rolls to death or just ISO scoring, I think that's played out. It's not going to work. I think you have to run things through someone else and then like set them up, make their life a little bit easier, have them come off of screens, catch the ball, shoot or drive. Like it shouldn't be rocket science.
Yeah, it worked really well 2 years ago when they were just exploding onto the scene, but now that teams have kind of figured out how to defend that type of style, it's really not doing anything for them.
Well, you also had like guys like Kemba Walker, early on in that season, and Kyrie Irving was there, and Rozier had like a moment where he was like, really special at point guard. I mean, he's still good, but like he kind of burst onto the scene too. And there were guys who could kind of make it work for them, and it wasn't just devolved into like standing around. They also had no answer for Giannis in this game.
Yeah.
Like I saw he had like 7 points at halftime, and then when I flipped it on, he just went nuts, and he ends up with 36. So you are you still feeling strong about Milwaukee as like the Eastern Conference representative? How do you like their title chances based on this one game?
I based off this one game, yeah, I really like them. I definitely have them in the conference finals still. Brooklyn, when we get to them, I mean, they still look really good. I mean, and Kevin Durant's not even here yet, so that's going to be a beast when it gets time for that. But Milwaukee's definitely going to take that series at least 6 games, I would think.
Yeah, I think so. I still think I don't know. I've kind of changed on my Brooklyn thoughts, and we'll get to that. Like as far as where I see them going, because they were my champion pick.
Yeah.
They've got some moves to make before I feel good about that pick again.
Well, it seems like teams are starting to realize that depth is going to go a little bit farther than just 2 or 3 just really good guys.
Right. Yeah. And the Bucks and Nets in particular from like last year's teams are teams that improved upon their depth, but I still don't think they're that deep. In this game, Milwaukee looked like dead in the water to me without Giannis out there. Like it was kind of clunky and ugly, and like you would expect Middleton and Drew Holiday to kind of make it work, but it just even energy wise, it wasn't the same when Giannis wasn't out there. He's so good.
Yeah,
he's incredible.
This year for him is really where he needs to solidify it. I think he's on some sort of tour to just prove that he is the top guy in the league after coming off that Finals MVP. So I think that's really fueling a lot.
He's better this year. I had LeBron, number one when we did our preseason rankings, and that was kind of like a playoff prediction. But obviously, with the Lakers kind of being what they are, I'm not feeling like I made a good decision there. I think now it's like clearly
pretty sure I picked them to win. So
yeah. I could not have been more wrong about them. No, Giannis, I mean, he's improved a lot this year. I mean, just the energy the life he breathes into the team and the gravity that he has, like when he drives to the basket or has the ball in the paint or just is around the basket, like the whole defense collapses. And like he doesn't really even have to make like a good read on like kickouts. because everybody is open. He just needs to
Yeah.
find a guy with a jersey that matches his, and then it's an open three. He
It's like the
control
opposite Steph Curry effect, where they just flock inwards instead of out.
right. It really is. I think they're the two players with like the most gravity in the league. Like, and it's different the way it works. And the way he controls the glass on both ends, like when he's under the basket, like doing offensive rebounds, he's quick off the floor and he doesn't have a long way to go to get a dunk. And it really fires up the team. And it's like when he's parked under the basket, there's just nothing you can do. Defensively, he just blows up whatever the other team is trying to do, either with perimeter defense or protecting the rim. I mean, he had the game sealing block in this game.
Yeah.
I think Curry's still the front runner for MVP, but like it's clear to me that Giannis and Durant are the best players in the league. I think it would be disrespectful of me to not mention Jokic in that best player conversation because you may not have watched them this year, but he's not. We talked about him being a liability on defense a couple of years ago, and then last year he was kind of like a neutral where he wasn't killing you, but wasn't helping you either. This year, he's probably going to be an all defensive team guy. Like he's really good on defense now. And then
as he slimmed down, maybe that's what it is. He might be quicker.
Yeah, he's a little bit lighter on his feet, but he just understands where to be, and he's just always kind of like contesting shots at the rim. Like he's not getting any huge blocks like Giannis does, but like he's just always in the right place, and he's keeping them afloat, and I don't know how because they don't have anything anymore hardly. I mean, you're talking Aaron Gordon's their second best player. No, but yeah, Durant, I think it's just stupid. The spin move that he does when he drives to the basket. There is one play where he put Juancho Hernangomez like in the basket, and then later in that game, he did a fake spin. And like everybody overreacted to it, and he hit him with a fadeaway to like close the game out. Like it was one of the closing plays. It's
if you give him an inch of space, if he gets within 15-20 feet of the basket and you give him an inch, it's going in.
And kind of like LeBron, like a few years ago, when he has like a head of steam on the fast break, I mean, it just puts the fear of God in you. Like you're almost better off not fouling him because he's just going to make it anyway. Everybody should just kind of part like the Red Sea and just get out of the way. I think for the Bucks, they just need to get healthy and for the playoffs. I mean, Brook Lopez played one game and he's been out since then. And like, as much as I love Boogie Cousins, it's just sad to see him out there now. He's just a shell.
I love seeing him back in the league.
It's fun to see him out there, but like it makes me sad to know that what he used to be and what he is now. I don't know. They added some depth. I mean, Grayson Allen, Boogie is some decent depth, but it's basically the same team. I was happy to see Wes Matthews back out there again. He's one of my favorite players from like role player type guys. Happy to see him back in the league. Looks like Jabari Parker can still do some stuff. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
In small doses, maybe he could contribute, but I don't know. I was happy with what I saw from him. I've never given up.
I was disappointed. ISO Joe didn't really get much of a chance yesterday.
Did he play?
We did finally see. I don't think so. We did finally see the coming out party of Peyton Pritchard that I've been waiting on all year. He kind of gave us. I thought he had a really good rookie season, but then this season it just hasn't really been able to do a ton. But I think he had 13 or 14 yesterday.
I thought he was going to start for you. I was shocked.
I thought he would have too.
But he really hasn't done much this year. Yeah, I think we kind of talked about the Celtics not having a point guard. I mean, it just kills them. They don't have anybody to kind of calm things down, set up Tatum and Brown. But I think they also Williams is an okay guy at center. But I think that's another position that really hurts this team.
Yeah, I think if it was just 2 or 3 more inches taller, he'd have an impact like Mitchell Robinson defensively. I mean, he still can get up there and block shots and catch any lob, but
he's really raw still. I mean, he may get it together. You guys made a pretty hefty commitment to him that I don't know that you needed to, but you guys are kind of stuck with him. I think you feel a lot better if he was like making slightly less and also coming off of the bench. If you had like a good center to start, he's just like an energy guy coming in off the bench, almost like Montrez, like a less skilled Montrez Harrell that just kind of blow things up for a while.
He doesn't have a great post game that you'd want in a starting center. It's kind of just cleaning stuff up and running on fast breaks. But if they can get a center that's better than him in the starting lineup, that'd be great to have him off the bench. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think Sabonis is the guy they should make a play for, but I don't know that you're going to talk Indiana into taking on Marcus Smart, and the amount of draft picks it would take to make that work is probably going to be pretty rough.
Yeah.
Although I've heard the trade market for Sabonis is not what you would expect. I've heard there's like very little interest in him, which really surprises me.
That is surprising.
I think he's kind of I talked about him versus Miles Turner like last week. I think Turner's kind of easier to plug in. Like a coach doesn't really have to think about how he fits. Like Sabonis has such a unique skill set. You kind of have to like cater things to him and maybe get a little creative, and maybe some coaches in front offices just aren't willing to do that yet. Warriors Suns, I think this might have been the best game of the day. I think it's probably not controversial to say that. I mean, we had some close games. That Boston Milwaukee game was close. Really every game except for the New York Hawks game was close. These are the two best teams in the league in my mind. I mean,
this is definitely the conference finals preview.
They are just far and away above anyone else in the West, and the records reflect that. But even like the eye test, I guess Utah is in the mix, but we're going to talk about them later. I just think that these two teams are just really, really incredible. Did you notice that Draymond Green started the game picking up Chris Paul full court?
No.
Yeah, his defensive assignment was Chris Paul. So they went Draymond on Chris Paul, and then Gary Payton II on Booker. Curry was on Bridges, and Otto Porter was on Crowder, and then obviously Looney was on Ayton. It was really weird, but it kind of threw a wrench in things early for Phoenix, because they would try to run the Chris Paul Ayton pick and roll, and they were able to switch that without really like losing anything. You're not going to punish DeAndre or Draymond Green with, as much as good as Ayton is, he's not just going to feast on Green in the most. I mean, Draymond's probably our defensive player of the year this year. This was just a awesome game. I mean, it was close all the way throughout. It felt like a Rocky movie, like especially in the fourth quarter. Like both teams were just going back and forth, scoring like big three, big dunk, like big score. And it just felt like, Rocky and Apollo Creed at like the end of the, one of the fight in Rocky 2, where they're just standing in the ring, just like throwing haymakers at each other. Yeah, slugging it out. Porter Jr., as strange as that sounds, he closed the game out. What a good
impressive stretch in the fourth. Yeah, it's really turned out to be a good pickup for them. I think they got him for pennies too.
1 year, $2.4 million. Yeah, I think he's going to be due for a big payday. I'm not surprised, though. I mean, I kind of talked about him in our season preview. I thought he was a guy who could help this team. I mean, he was a high draft pick. What was he, the third pick? And I don't remember what draft, but he's always been good, like everywhere he's gone. Like he was the starter in Washington on some playoff teams, and he got shipped off to Chicago, and Chicago was terrible, so we never heard about him. And then he gets shipped off to Orlando, and Orlando's terrible, so we never hear about him. I think people just forgot about him. I mean, he's a big guy. He shoots well. He gets his own shot here and there. Like just with his size, he's not going to get killed on defense. Also, it looks like he has the Wilt Chamberlain bloodline.
He looks just like him.
I know, it's weird. Like, the similarities.
If you stick it side by side, they're identical.
Yeah. Draymond 8 and 10, so nearly a triple double. 33 for Curry, which sounds really great, but he was only 10 of 27. 19 for Porter. 18 for DeAndre Ayton on 8 of 10 shooting. I was just like screaming at my TV for them to get him the ball. 21 for Paul, 7 of 14. Booker had kind of a bad game, only 13, 5 of 19. Do you feel good about Doris Burke, color commentator?
I love Doris. She got 2 games yesterday too.
Did she really? Did she have the Utah game?
She had the Utah game.
See, I didn't watch much of that, and I didn't have the sound on. I didn't like her early on. She's a lot less grating than she was, early on. But I feel like we got to have Mark Jackson for any Devin Booker game just so he can
Oh
do
yeah.
his be legendary. Kobe Bryant told him to be legendary, and that's what he's doing.
Yeah, he says it every game. Him
Every
and
time.
Green are my favorite duo. Damn it. Jeff Van Gundy kind of ruins it for me, but the other two are just awesome.
Yeah, Jeff doesn't have a good sense of like when to take things seriously. Like he likes to go
Yeah.
on those rants, and it's like a 2-point game, like late into the third quarter or something. Just like shut up, like just talk about
And
the game.
he's really smart. He's a really smart dude. I just can't stand listening to him.
Yeah, he's got kind of an annoying voice too. I think yeah, I guess let's talk about the Suns first. Because I think I think they should still feel good about this, even though they lost. The Warriors don't seem to have an answer for 8.
I don't know who does. I mean, he's shown that he can go 80% shooting any game.
He's
15.
a lot better this year for as much as I gushed about him in our season preview and kind of when we were doing the top 50 players. The jump hook just seems unstoppable, like the short roll kind of spin to the jump hook. And he's really gotten a lot better at reading when he should just make a hard dive to the basket on the pick and roll or do like that short roll. And the mid-range shot is coming along. Like he hit a couple in this game. It's still a work in progress, but I think he's going to have that in his bag sooner than later. Defensively, too. I mean, he got switched out to Curry, and Curry kind of danced on him a little bit, but he stuck with him pretty well. Like he doesn't get killed on switches. Rebounds at an elite level. I mean, there are a few centers that I would probably take over him. I mean, would you rather have him or Gobert, you think?
Oh, him easily. I don't think I would take more than 3 centers over him.
Well, you taking
four,
like Jokic,
4 centers. I would go Jokic, Cat, maybe Cat. I don't know.
I'm probably
definitely Embiid, maybe Bam. I think those are at least the only ones to consider.
Yeah, I would probably take Bam. I don't know. It's close. It's really close, and that's how good Ayton is. And I'm like a diehard Heat fan, but I would not take Cat over Ayton just for the defense.
Well, you get more on both sides from Ayton, which is I'm kind of thinking I would take Ayton over that one too.
It's easier to fit like a team around Ayton than a team around Cat. I still don't know how the Cat thing is going to work. I mean, he says he's the best shooting big man of all time. I think Dirk would have something to say about that, but he's definitely in the conversation. Dirk didn't have a step back 3 like at all, and that's something that Cat can do pretty consistently. So I don't know. So I guess you could feel good about that. Also, Booker had a really bad game, so that's something you can kind of hold on to if you're a Suns fan. I don't know. They played pretty well. They hung in there. The only thing is like the Warriors were missing like a lot of their guys. Like there was no Wiggins, no Iggy, no Jordan Poole, obviously no Clay. That's a lot of their wing depth, and that's 2 of their 3 probably most important offensive player or scoring options. I don't want to say offensive players. I think Draymond would probably have something to say to me if you heard me say that, but definitely 2 of their best.
Yeah, he's proved to be so important.
Yeah. But yeah, no Wiggins, no Poole. Those, I think Wiggins is probably their second best scoring option this year. Poole, third, maybe second. Defensively, the Warriors are so good. I mean, they made life hell for the Suns. They just got so many like athletes on this team, just long athletes. You got Draymond. He's probably going to be defensive player of the year this year. Iguodala, Gary Payton II, who has just come out of nowhere and is just like a lockdown defender. I'm all aboard the Kuminga train now. I was not a believer in him pre-draft. Toscano Anderson's a really good defender. Porter's like okay, but at least he's like long and pretty athletic. And then Wiggins. And then you also add Clay to this mix. He's going to come back in a couple of weeks. Did you notice their defense is like, it's very bizarre. It's like a zone man hybrid at times.
Yeah, I think it's probably more situational than anything.
It looks like
that's hard to stop when you don't know what they're throwing at you.
Yeah, on the back end, they're running like on the weak side. I noticed like a couple of times, like it seemed like they were zoning up. Like Porter wasn't following his man, and they were communicating on the back end and switching with no screens were taking place just to keep Porter under the basket. Um, and then it's like it can be kind of box and one or triangle and two at times. It looks really complicated, but then like when things kind of devolve or like there's kind of a breakdown, it switches back to man. It's really cool, and I think teams are having a really tough time like figuring it out. Then offensively, like you have Curry, so you're always going to be a good offensive team. I think the Warriors probably lead the league in just like uncontested dunks where like a guy just drives the paint, you know, takes two dribbles, takes his time, and just is a wide open dunk because Curry just came off of a double screen and like everybody's
Right.
scrambling to get to him.
Yeah, and they play with so much energy. I think it's hard to just keep up with that for 48 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. So where are you at with Draymond Green? He said he's the best defensive player of all time.
I wouldn't give him that. I You got to respect Draymond so much, especially after this long being with that team, and you can see just how important he is to them. If you can make Steph Curry like more deadly off the ball than on the ball, then I think he deserves a lot of props for that, and I think that's a lot to do with him.
Yeah, I'm also not on board with him being the best defensive player of all time, but he is like I think he's probably in the top five. I don't know that I could name five that are better than him.
In terms of being versatile with defense, like he can guard anyone any night, like for sure.
If we were putting a team together of the like putting a team together of like the best defensive players, like with the intention of like playing them, like
Yeah,
I think he's on the team.
yeah.
I think he's starting on that
At least
team.
in the rotation. If yeah, and if he's not, he's quick off the bench. I feel like you would want Jordan, Kawhi, probably I don't know, Bill Russell if that counts for centers. There's probably
Yeah,
better centers we could think of,
I
but
think Duncan is in there too.
Hakeem, Duncan,
Yeah, yeah, we're starting to get close to five, top 10, top 10 for sure.
yeah,
Maybe he's got a case for top five. I think I kind of thought he was a little overrated during like the Warriors prime, like before they got Durant, because people were
yeah,
talking about him as if he was this phenomenal offensive player, and like he's a good passer, and like I don't know, he can be a good shooter, like a respectable shooter at times. But I thought, at the time, I was like, there's a lot of guys in the league who you could plug into this role and get like similar production assist wise, like with some of the like the easy assists he gets. But he's a really good passer. I don't want to act like he's not a really good passer. I just don't think he's an all-time passer like a Magic or a Larry Bird. I don't think he's quite there. He's a smart passer, but he's not like as spectacular or accurate as those guys were.
In terms of like before the KD era, how do you think this team stands against the 73-9 guys, even without Clay on their team?
I think it's a tough series.
Yeah, I
I
think it
think
is
the
too.
73-9 group win, but this team is a lot deeper than that group was. And like
Yeah, that's how I'm looking at it.
athletically, this group is really special. I mean, they put when they take Curry out, they just go all defense. And when they do Kuminga and Gary Payton the second together, and they're just wreaking havoc, like picking guys up full court, it's tough to deal with. Kuminga nearly ended Shamit's life today too with that. I mean, he came in cold off the bench and nearly like put the dunk of the year on him.
I think even if you get Clay, like I don't even think you're really worried about his offense with his injuries, but even if you get like 75-80% of what he was on defense, I think you're adding just another gold medal to the team. I mean, that's gonna make him so much more unstoppable.
Yeah, I think you're probably subbing out Poole instead of Wiggins. Wiggins has been really good this year. I mean,
Yeah,
you probably haven't seen too much of him, but like he looks like shades of what we thought he would be. Like
yeah, they're the team I've watched the most. I would say, and he's played well every game. GP has played well every game. Toscano's played good minutes, and obviously Steph is playing at MVP levels.
Yeah, but back to the Clay thing. Yeah, I think you're probably taking out Poole, and yeah, I love Poole, but like he's not a. I don't think he's really considered a great defensive player, and I think 75% of Clay on defense is probably better than 100% of Poole. And then the shooting
they're still
stuff,
missing James Wiseman. Also.
Yeah, that is their one weakness. I would say is center. I like Looney. I think he's solid. He's not hurting you out there, but he's not really helping you much either. Like he's good, but like that's the one spot that you can kind of exploit on this team, and you can really see it when they go to Bielitsa off the bench. You can't tell me that Bielitsa is not just the second coming of Hito Turkoglu. I mean,
he's been solid.
The clunky dribbling is there. The weird drop where like it looks like he's moving a mile an hour. Like just it's so slow, but he just somehow
he'll knock the shots
to the basket.
Yeah, I don't know if this is because he's bounced around or even if he's just stayed in Golden State, but it feels like Looney has been on the Warriors since like the first championship run. Has he been with them the whole time, or has he bounced back and forth?
No, he's been with them his whole career, but okay. I think he might have missed the first title. I don't think he was there yet. And I know early in his career, he just kind of sat on the bench and they just kind of developed him, I guess, into what he is now. But, credit to them for sticking with him. But yeah, I depending on what you get from Wiseman when he comes back, like I think center is the spot that they can build on. And they have it, as crazy as it is, like, they have Moses Moody like sitting over there on the bench, who is a high lottery pick, or like at least a lottery pick. I guess it was late lottery, but that's an asset that you can turn into something that you're not even using. And like they just have so much depth that they could cash in and try and make a play for a Miles Turner or something. Earlier in the year, they were talking about teams were talking about wanting Kuminga, or like analysts were talking about, they can trade Kuminga. I don't think they're trading Kuminga now. He looks too good.
They're not a team who's really going to trade much of their core away either. I think even if they have a lot of success with what they're doing now, they probably would hold on to it for as long as they can.
Yeah, I don't think they're making any moves. I think they want to see what happens when Clay gets back in the mix and see what they have. Same with Wiseman, and then they'll kind of go from there. But I think this year they're probably just going to run it through with this group. Suns also have to be in the mix for the title. I think the Warriors are probably my favorite to win it now.
Yeah, I'd probably take them too.
If we were doing predictions from this point, I would pick them, but I guess I've got to ride it out with my Nets pick.
I just got to stay with the Lakers.
That's going to be tough. It's just the same group from last year for the Suns. Just add Shamet and McGee, who are honestly really well needed, because like Shamet, you can play when Cam Payne doesn't have it, and he doesn't have it every now and again. And then McGee in place of like Frank Kaminsky, because Dario Saric is still out. I think that's really helpful. All right, Nets Lakers. How was this your first time watching the Lakers? Second time?
This might have been the second time I saw them. But I've seen highlights, but the first or second full game that I've watched. That Russell Westbrook, man, it's tough.
It's really tough. They are hard to watch. They're like
just awful to watch.
It's a train wreck. It's like watching a train wreck. I've watched like quite a few of their games now. It's like so hard to watch, but you can't help but like watch it. It's just it's like, and honestly, watching LeBron react to all of this around him is just like it's worth it.
He's still a king.
Yeah, he's killing it for them, but it's all for naught. And like this game in particular was like had to be really dejecting for him, because it's like him versus Harden. Game was like really close throughout, except like it kind of just felt like the Lakers were just reeling and just trying their best to stick around.
Yeah, and then, they played catch up for so long. They were down like 18 at one point.
Oh, I forgot they made a big comeback to cut it. Third quarter, LeBron checks out with 3:42. They're down 11. They start the fourth quarter. They're down 20. And he plays the entire fourth quarter only to lose. That had to hurt.
Yeah, they came back probably with like a minute left. And then they're down by 3 at the very end of the game. Westbrook gets the ball, just takes it right to the rim and just gets stuffed by the rim.
Oh my gosh,
And
that was so bad.
that's the end of the game.
I thought he got blocked on that play, and then they showed the
No,
replay. I'm like, no, he just jammed
yeah.
it straight into the front of the rim.
Yeah, it was straight rim. I think he was like 3 or 4 for 20 that game.
I didn't look at the box for this one. But yeah, it didn't look good. It hasn't looked good. I actually talked about like how he deserves less of the blame. Like an AD deserves like a big lion's share of the blame.
Yeah.
Like I think Russell Westbrook is like the obvious place to point the finger, but it's hard to say with AD out. It's hard to really blame him. But like when he was out there, it just wasn't good enough.
It feels like there was a consensus though, like this had to be AD's team. Like this, he was the one who needed to be running things if they were going to make that run. Even with LeBron, but like he needed to be the second guy, not anyone else.
That was the plan. Like, yeah. I feel like that was the plan when they got him. Like, oh, it's going to be LeBron's team. He's going to show you the ropes, and then you're going to take the torch from him.
Right.
It just didn't happen. I mean, Davis's numbers, like what he's putting up, it's like 24 and 12, so it looks like fine on paper. But like, he's taking like 30% of his shots are like bad mid-range jumpers, like where he's like, from like outside the paint, but not a three. He's also not making his threes. He just settles for jumpers too much. And it's just, I don't know. He just needs to quit being a wuss and play center.
Yeah, they've been asking him to do that. I mean, the Pelicans asked him to do that, I think, at one point.
Well, DeAndre Jordan is unplayable at this point in his career. Like, it's over. It's been over for a couple of years for him, but like it's really bad this year. And it's like kind of tarnishing my memory of him because every time I see him out there, I'm like, this is just so bad. Like he can't do anything anymore. Dwight isn't far behind.
Yeah, I think they played him like 5 minutes all yesterday. I think they started him and then took him out. And that was it.
That's what they've been doing.
Yeah, and they played Carmelo at the 5 for a while.
Oh my gosh! The other night with Carmelo, this was the lineup. This is a war crime. This lineup, it's a war crime. They ran Rondo, Isaiah, Russell Westbrook, Taylor Horton Tucker, Melo at the 5.
Yeah, that's awful.
It was brutal. It was brutal. I really like Fizdale. Like I thought he did a decent job in Memphis. I thought he got a raw deal there. I think he coached in New York. I don't remember how it went.
I think he did a season, maybe 2 in New York.
There wasn't much there when he was there, so I wasn't going to kill him for that. And then he was an assistant in Miami for a long time, and I was like, oh, I like Fizdale. I think he could be a coach in the league. I'm not so sure anymore. I'm not so sure. I don't think you could. He's kind of been forced into this LeBron at the 5 thing with no AD. But I mean, even if they could coax him into playing center, Anthony Davis, like it's just there's no excuse for the 3-point guard lineup with Horton Tucker and Melo. Like that can't be. Did nobody on that bench be like, "Hey, coach, this might not be a good idea"?
Well, the problem is LeBron is probably going to shut him up if it's not how he wants it.
You think LeBron is like sandbagging them to be like, look, I have no help. Like, so he's having Fizdale run these crazy lineups, or is it just they don't have anybody? Is that all it is?
I think it's definitely some that they don't have anything to deal with. I think their options are very limited. That's for sure.
Yeah, I talked about when we did our season preview. I wasn't feeling great about the DeAndre Jordan Dwight tandem at center.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to be really rough, but I thought they were just kind of setting it up for AD to play the 5, but that doesn't look like that's happening either. They're kind of stuck. Like there's really not much trade wise that they can do. I mean,
well, if you've noticed LeBron on Twitter, he keeps hyping up his teammates, which people have noticed that's kind of what he tends to do when he wants to ship them off to another team.
There's no one to ship off, though. Everyone's on a league minimum contract. You're not sending Westbrook. Nobody's taking Westbrook. I saw somebody on Twitter today was pitching a Westbrook to Orlando trade for Gary Harris, Terrence Ross, and Robin Lopez. There's no way Orlando's doing that. They don't want Russell Westbrook.
I don't think anyone's taking that contract. I think they're stuck with it.
Well, Orlando has a bunch of young guards. They don't want to throw Russell Westbrook into the mix. Like, there's just nowhere for him to go.
Yeah, I think they're stuck.
Is it over for? I mean, is this contract? Is he out of the league after this contract? Do you think someone picks him up?
No, I think he'll still be on a team. I don't know what his role will be going forward. I mean, I think he's getting paid like 44 million this year, something crazy. I think that's going to hurt a lot of teams in the future if they decide to sign him because he's probably not going to settle for much less going
I don't
forward.
think he's going to settle for a lesser role either. This is what happened to
Yeah,
Iverson.
yeah,
Iverson wouldn't come off the bench, and then he was playing in China, and it seemed like
yeah.
it was over way too soon. I'm afraid that's where this is going. But don't worry, Laker fans, not to fear. Kendrick Nunn is coming back soon to save the day. No, I Taylor Horton Tucker is making like 10 million, so they could do him and Kendrick Nunn, and they're like you're like 15 million there, 16 million. So that's like a real player. But like Taylor Horton Tucker has sucked every game I've watched. He's just been like abominable every like 2 for 18 bad every time I watch. You can't make a layup, like nothing. So I'm not sure who the hell is going to be interested in him.
Yeah, it seems like whenever they get rid of a player, he really just finds a better role somewhere else. Like Caruso now is also doing really well. He was doing well in LA, but he's doing really well in Chicago too.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it's clear he could do a lot more than the Lakers were letting him.
and that's how it is for a lot of them, unfortunately. Where I think the Lakers messed up is putting so much age on their team. Like you have, like you said, Howard and Jordan is kind of at the end of the line for them, and if they had younger centers, maybe it would be different.
Yeah, well, younger wings too. I mean,
Yeah,
Melo is like shockingly important for this team. I don't know if you've
yeah. I'm
noticed,
not
like
going
a
to
lot
talk
of
bad about him at all.
dude. He's been good. He's been really good this year, and
Yeah,
he looks like he's got a couple more years left in him. I mean, he's not. I don't think he's terrible on defense anymore. I don't know if it's just because
no,
like the Lakers are bad and like he just looks good by comparison. But in Portland, I thought he was like okay.
right. I thought he settled into the Portland role pretty well, so I didn't really have any worries for him in LA. I think it's just kind of who's around him.
Is he there? He's their third most important player, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Not second without
LeBron,
AD.
AD, and yeah, LeBron, AD, and Melo.
Do you think he's more important than Russell Westbrook now for them?
Yes,
I do
yes.
too. I do too.
He's so much more reliable.
Yeah, Westbrook is. They're getting him numbers, but like it looks like it's coming at the cost of like the team's success. I suggested he needed to go back to like I think it was the 2016 Olympics and just pick guys up full court like Russell Westbrook and just be awesome on defense and just whatever you get from him on offense, great, but really hang his hat on
Yeah,
defense. He's not going to do it, but like I think that's their only way forward with him. I feel so dumb for picking this team to be as good as they
I know.
were.
The
I think
hindsight is 2020
the
for this
writing
because
was
what
all
like
over the wall with this crew too. But
yeah, it's right there.
it's like Tom Brady. I just expect LeBron to be there at the end.
Well, I really got suckered into the news report where it was like AD, Russ, and LeBron had a three-person meeting and they set their differences aside and all agreed to have their roles. And I really just fell for that one.
Anthony Davis has become my least favorite player in the league.
He's soft. It's hard to watch like anyone on that team really at this point.
Yeah, LeBron is I there this is set up for like that. Was it 2018 with the Cavs? No. What year was it where they had like Dwayne Wade and Derrick Rose and it was like
That was
this
2017.
it was 2017. This is set up for like the fire sale, like
Yeah.
where they're just trading for like pennies on the dollar. It's going to be like Rodney Hood, and we're going to be like, oh, Rodney Hood, that's pretty good. Like we could definitely build an offense around him. Like it's being set up for that.
Well, it's also LeBron's last year in this deal, so it's really
Oh, I think he's got one more.
one more. Did he sign an extension? I thought this was the fourth year.
I think he has one more year.
So I know he's going to structure himself to kind of be a
Let me
free
look it
agent
up.
when
Keep
Bronny gets
talking.
into the league. Um, the way I thought it was this was his last year. He'd probably sign a 1-year deal next year, and then when Bronny gets drafted, that's where his next destination is going to be.
That's what I feel like. I've been seeing the Cleveland thing pitched around like he's going to go back, reunite with Cleveland because he likes their young core.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really see him leaving LA
One more year
at
with
this point.
one more year on
One more
LeBron.
year.
Yeah.
I don't see him leaving. Like, I don't think he would leave LA. Like maybe he'd go to the Clippers or the Warriors, but I don't really see him leaving that area.
They're the 7th seed.
Surprisingly.
16 and 18, 7th seed. And with the Paul George being out, the Clippers are going to fall off a cliff. I have to imagine they're in the 5th seed. And they're only at 17 and 15. They're out of the running, I think, for a first round home court advantage. The Grizzlies are 20 and 14, and they've looked really good. They've also been without Ja, so they were able to kind of keep the ship afloat there. And then you've got Warriors, Suns, and Jazz at the top of the conference. It's weird. The conferences have really flip-flopped this year where it's like really top-heavy in the West, and then everyone else is just kind of And then
the top 3 are so heavy in the West.
The East is like really like competitive, kind of top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God,
Minnesota. I think at least for the West, like we said, the Warriors and the Suns are definitely the best 2 teams. I think the Jazz are probably the next best team in the conference, but it's the Jazz. Like I can't see them being really good and then just losing the first round like they always do, or the second round.
We'll talk about them here in a second. I want to talk about the Nets a little bit. I mean, any overreactions to this game?
I mean, who needs Kevin Durant when you have Patty Mills?
Right. He was incredible. He's been really good for them all year.
Yeah. You put Patty Mills on the floor with a national audience, like you're in for it.
I still have nightmares about him in San Antonio against the Heat. Him and Danny Green.
I mean, he gives it to the entire United States every 4 years in the Olympics.
Yeah, he really does. I didn't know this. They mentioned in the broadcast that that was Australia's first medal this past Olympics. I couldn't believe that. As good as they are. Nets maybe getting Kyrie back is what I've heard.
In protocol?
Yeah, I mean, they announced that they were going to be bringing him back, which is kind of funny to me because it's just like, no, if we don't want him, if we can't have him all the time, we don't want him at all. And then they've kind of not had a very good year. I mean, their record is good, but like it's definitely been bumpy. So now that like it's not clear that they're going to be like the title favorite, they're like, actually we will have you for away games. And as soon as
I think with the COVID stuff too, they're kind of running out of options. They're already paying him, so they might as well stick him on the floor.
I think they don't have to pay him.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I kept seeing like on one of the transaction reports, I kept seeing like Kyrie Irving fines.
Oh yeah, he is getting fined. He's been.
Oh, so he's getting a portion of his salary. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as they announced that they were going to be trying to bring him back, it was like immediately into health and safety protocols, like 20 minutes later. Yep. So I still think like if they don't get him back, or if they don't trade him and get something like somewhat substantial back, like fill in something for that Kyrie spot, I don't think they're winning the title. I don't even think they're getting there with just Durant and like this version of Harden that we have. I don't know if you noticed in that game. I know Harden put up like a bunch of points, but he doesn't beat anyone off the dribble anymore. Like he doesn't get around guys, and it's been that way all year. I don't know if it's the weight or if it's the hamstring, if he's still struggling with that. I think it's likely his age and the miles and the fact that he doesn't really take good care of his body anymore. Or he never really did.
He took such a beating for like 5 straight years just by doing that. So I'm sure that's caught up to him.
I kept saying that the Houston years were going to catch up to him at some point because he had to do everything for them on offense. And like I know his defense is kind of a meme, but when he was in Houston, he's not LeBron James physically. Like you can't ask anybody who's not a physical freak like that to carry the load he had on offense and then play defense on the other end, like to any degree. And yeah, I think those miles have caught up to him. He's still like a really effective player, but I don't think he's a top 10 player in the league anymore. I don't think this version of him is there.
Yeah.
I think he's top 20 still.
Yeah, he definitely is. And I think he had a triple-double yesterday. Durant, they definitely missed him. It was impressive just to see them. I mean, I guess it was the Lakers, but play as well as they did without Durant and Irving out there.
Yeah, I think it looked rough at times. Like they still have the huge hole at center. You can see it. Like as good as Claxton is, and it's like as much as I like him, like beating up on either LeBron or Melo at center or Dwight or DJ. Like he should have really dominated that game, and they've gotten killed on the glass every game I've watched of them this year. Now they just got Claxton back from an illness that was not COVID that kept him out for like 2 months almost, but I think they need a real upgrade at center. The good news for them is they're a buyout like destination. So like they can get something. LaMarcus Aldridge isn't really doing it anymore. Blake is kind of in and out of the rotation. It's I think it might be done for Blake too. As sad as that is to say.
It is sad.
Like he kind of had a rejuvenation last year, and it looked like maybe we had a couple more years of him, but like this year it looks like it's done.
Yeah, he's not. It's either him physically or just he's not getting the opportunity. But yeah, that one came really quick for sure.
Yeah, it was rough when he was out there. Earlier in the year, like it was unnoticeable. It looked like the Detroit version of Blake. It looked like he was able to kind of cobble it together for the end of last year, but this year it looked like the end of the Detroit era for Blake.
Yeah, see, in the beginning he was all right, but that end was pretty rough.
Yeah. All right, final game of the night, Mavs Jazz. I only caught like the last 4 minutes of this, but I feel like I've seen enough of both teams to kind of form an opinion. I've talked about the Mavs a lot. Did you watch this game? Pay close attention or like watch
I didn't catch much of it. I didn't catch much of it. Probably like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I've talked. I guess I'll just kind of do my Mavs stuff here. KP and Doncic didn't play tonight, so that's a reason why I was like not real interested in this game. They look like they hate playing together, and after that Carlisle story came out, it kind of makes sense because like Doncic and Dennis Smith Jr. were like best friends. And so then they come to Doncic, they tell him we're trading your best friend. We're going to bring in this guy. You guys are going to be a dynamic duo. You're not going to have to carry the team. And here we are, 3 years later, whatever it is, 4 years later, I can't keep track of my times, but Doncic is still having to carry the team. And there's Porzingis, who's a constant reminder that your best friend is no longer on the team. So I get it. A kid is like trying to get them away from like the heliocentric offense around Luka where he has to do everything. He's trying to get them away from that, but they just don't have like the horses to do that. They don't have the players to do that. I mean, Brunson is good, but I think you're feeling great about him as a third guard, not your secondary ball handler.
I think after watching the Mavs the last like 2 seasons, I feel like they need to move away from that type of offense. It's just they don't have the pieces to do it. That's like the next step of doing that.
I feel like kids saw that they needed to do this, but it seemed like their front office this offseason wasn't on the same page. Yeah, I don't know. There's Porzingis. I think they should try to move him, but I don't think there's a move out there for him. They're probably just going to have to ride it out with him and just kind of like hope that they can repair the relationship between Doncic and Porzingis and try to get them on the same page playing together. Porzingis looks lost out there when Doncic is playing. Like he doesn't seem, I think he's trying to make it work, but he doesn't know how to. Like he doesn't know what to do, where to stand, how to, he just looks kind of unsure. And I'm hoping kid can get that sorted out, but I don't know. They actually kept JJ Barea on the roster, the article said.
I had no idea.
No, not now. No, he's not there anymore. But like earlier on, like a couple of years ago, he was still on the roster despite like not really contributing much on the court. He was there just because the Carlisle Doncic Porzingis relationship, like the relationship between the two players to Carlisle, was so bad that Barea had to act as the intermediary between everyone. I'm just like,
that's
wow.
Awful.
Great job, Carlisle. That he's I compare him to Jeff Fisher, like no coach, him and Doc, no coaches have gotten more out of like one good season than those two. Like they're thought of as coaching legends, and it's just they had one good year.
We had that one conversation about Doc, like what his legacy would be like if he never won that championship with Boston. And I was just thinking as you were talking about Carlisle, it's like there's the only thing you can think about is that one championship with the Mavs 10 years ago.
I know. Yeah, I know. It really is the same. And like, I know they've had playoffs, but honestly, I'm not impressed by making the playoffs. Like more than half of the league makes the playoffs. Now 2/3 of
Yeah.
the league make the playoffs. So like getting to the playoffs is not an accomplishment. Despite that, the Kings seem to never be able to do that. Switching gears to the Jazz. Why don't we believe in them?
If I feel like it's disrespectful to not, but like it happens every year. Something's gonna happen in the playoffs. I mean, I just know it.
But listen, I get it. Jazz fans are pissed off every single year because everybody is always writing off their team, and I'm guilty of it.
Yeah, I do it every year.
We just never quite believe in this group. Well, if you think about the last 2 years in the playoffs, they blew a 3-1 lead in the first round of the Nuggets in the bubble. And then they were up 2-0 on the Clips last year and lost 4 straight. Granted, Donovan Mitchell was kind of banged up in that Clippers series, but that's the last 2 times, and they were the number 1 seed last year. So that's the 2 times we saw them most recently in the playoffs have been like very disappointing, and they've kind of collapsed like epically.
Yeah, and I think they're in a good spot to make the 3rd seed this year.
They're going to make the 3rd seed in the West. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's the 6 right now?
The 6, that'd be the Nuggets.
So they'd play the Nuggets again if the season ended today.
That will not be the Nuggets, probably.
Yeah.
Because you've got Clippers at 5, Nuggets at 6, Lakers at 7, Mavs at 8, Wolves at 9, Spurs at 10.
That is so bad. That those bottom
Trailblazers at 11, who have 1 loss more than the Spurs, but the same amount of wins. They've got to do something too. Kings, 12th spot. I did a whole video on the Kings because I have like a soft spot for that team. Pelicans are also, I guess, kind of in the mix for the 10th spot. But
so the Spurs shut me up then, that's for sure.
You doubted the Spurs. You doubted the Spurs. The Wolves were the team that I doubted that I'm like paying for now.
Yeah.
No, I do want to bring something else up about the Jazz because they're built almost exactly the same as the Suns. Like they've got the 3-guard rotation with Mitchell, Conley, and Jordan Clarkson, like an older veteran guard, the young up and coming shooting guard, and then like the energy, like scoring guard kind of, you wouldn't feel good about him starting, but he's good against the second unit guard off the bench. They've got the defensive specialist and 3-point shooting wings, just like, the Suns do. And then they've got the defensive anchor center. So you think we would feel really good about them. But like, if you compare like those groups of players that I just mentioned, like the guards, the wings, and then the defensive anchor center, I think you're obviously taking Chris Paul over Mike Conley.
Yeah, I would take the Suns guards rotation over the Jazz.
I think it's a toss up at best between Booker and Mitchell. If we're being honest, it's Booker. Like I don't think too many people are taking Mitchell over Booker, but I think that's a toss up at best. And then I think you're taking Clarkson over either Shamet or Campaign. But still, I mean, so obvious advantage to the Suns. Now let's get to the wings. You've got Bojan Bogdanovic, Rudy Gay, Royce O'Neal, Joe Ingles. They're going up against Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges, and Cam Johnson.
That's pretty tough.
Oh, I'm taking the Suns group.
Really? I mean, I like the shooting on both of them. I would probably go. I think. Yeah, I don't want to say I'm gonna give Suns all three categories, but that's probably what it's gonna be.
That's what it is. That's kind of my point. Bridges, you haven't watched much this year, but he's really developed. He's got like a little bit of an intermediate scoring game, like mid-range and some stuff off the dribble. But also defensively, he's looking like, I think he's in the mix for defensive player of the year this year. And I wouldn't be shocked if he got it. I think he's a first team all defense guy. You don't have that with the Jazz group. The Jazz have more, but they don't have the quality. And then I would rather have Aiden than Gobert, but there is a case for Gobert. So, I mean, if we're feeling generous, we could give the nod at center to Gobert, but I don't think that that's the case. Every time
it's unfair before you even talk about it because I have such a strong bias against him.
I do too.
And also I love Aiden, so
I I don't like watching Gobert. Every time I don't watch a ton of Jazz games, but every time I watch him, I'm just always left wanting more. They played the Heat this year. They played them twice already. In one of the games, Kyle Lowry out rebounded Gobert. Kyle Lowry had 12 rebounds to Gobert's 8. So that was tough.
I don't even know how he gets 12 rebounds. Like, what is that more of a knock to the Heat than it is to Rudy Gobert?
No, we killed them on the glass that game. we annihilated them as a team. Like, so I don't know. Kyle Lowry was just kind of in the right place at the right time, but still, Kyle Lowry gets some like cheeky offensive rebounds too, like where he's just kind of like he uses his big butt and like moves people out of the way. Yeah, Gobert just kind of, I'm just never really impressed with him. Have you watched much Jazz games like over the years? Do his hands just suck?
Yeah, it seems like he'll catch it at his chest and then it always goes down. And then that gives anyone time to just get to him, and it kind of makes it harder on himself.
Like, it seems like obvious to run him like pick and rolls and like use him as like a lob threat and like a rim runner. And like I've seen games where they're like trying to do that, but he just doesn't catch the ball.
Yeah, I haven't noticed him like not catching lobs. I think he takes too long in the post almost every time.
Yeah, he has no post game.
Yeah.
He's not giving you enough offensively, and at his height and his body type, he should just be killing teams on like switches and when they go small. Like, he should not be able to go small against the Jazz. Like, he should crush you for that, but he doesn't. I don't know. I expect this team to be a second round exit. I mean, the West is so like weird this year because the Clippers are going to drop out without Paul George. I can't see like Eric Bledsoe and company like keeping them.
Well, they would most likely play the Suns in the second round, wouldn't they? Or that'd be the conference semifinals when they play the Suns.
Yeah, I mean, they'll either play the Suns or the Warriors.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's a tough road.
Good luck. Yeah. No, I mean, second round wise, they might be looking at the Lakers if the Clippers fall off. I mean, obviously the standings are going to change drastically. I have to imagine the Blazers are going to make a move at some point. So like maybe they could sneak into that 6th seed. 6th seed is up for grabs. So it's pretty much you're fighting for 5 through 10 in the West. And everybody, there's really no difference. It's not until you get to like, well, geez, even the Rockets are still kind of in it. They're at 15th, but I mean they're 10 and 23. The team in 10th place has 13 wins. So it's not inconceivable that I mean it's not happening for them. They're terrible, but like I mean, I guess it could happen. Mathematically it could happen, but like if you watch the Rockets, it's not happening. Yeah, I don't know. My feelings on the Jazz are the same as they've always been. I feel bad for Jazz fans that like they're kind of the flyover state, you know, in terms of the basketball conversation, and they feel kind of bent out of shape about that. And we're not helping the narrative there. But do it in the playoffs, and then we can start taking you a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, if they make it to the conference semifinals,
they have to make it to the conference finals.
I'd give them more respect, I guess. But I mean, they'd also have a tough matchup probably with the Suns, or the Warriors. I guess they're so close. You don't even know who's going to be 1 and 2 at this point.
I guess the Jazz are even in the mix for the a 1 seed. They're only a couple games back. But I feel like the Warriors and the Suns are like clearly the favorites.
Yeah.
But I mean, injuries, COVID, like anything.
We might not even see anyone that we're used to in the playoffs. Who knows what's going to happen? We could see Joe Johnson leading the Celtics if they even make it. IT leading the Lakers.
Oh, well, IT's off the Lakers now, so
yeah, they're not picking him up. That hurts.
Gonna have to find a new home. I mean, I think there are some teams that are probably in the market for him, but I don't know. The bottom half of the West is looking bleak. Like the fact that I'm like looking at it, I'm like, wow, like the Timberwolves, like that's a team that I kind of believe in now, compared to like the Timberwolves are in. They've got to be in. There's no way the Kings are sneaking into their spot. I'm assuming that the Clippers are just going to fall off a cliff. I guess that's not necessarily the case, but I can't imagine the Reggie Jackson, Eric Bledsoe led Clippers are going to be able to keep pace. It sounds like Paul George might be out for the year.
Yeah, when is Kawhi coming back? He's probably not coming back at all. But
Not if Paul George is out. He's not.
yeah, I would. I think we talked about at the beginning. If they're competitive, he might, but I wouldn't see him playing this year.
Yeah, I don't know. The West is looking kind of bleak. I'm not feeling good about many of the teams out west. Because even
No, and that's
Denver's like one of the more solid teams, and they don't have like any of their players. Oh, they do get Jamal Murray back though.
yeah,
I think Porter
that's in like
Jr. is probably
February.
out. They could be tough to beat. I don't know. I don't know. It's the Suns and the Warriors conference to lose. So,
Yeah, I agree.
any other thoughts? Christmas Day games or otherwise?
No, no, that was a fun day of basketball for sure. It's one of my favorite days of the year.
We had some really good games. We didn't really talk too much about the Mavs Jazz game, but that was close up until the end. And yeah, the Mavs, without Luka, they just didn't have the firepower to kind of stay in it at the end. But I mean, it looked like it was a close game, at least down the stretch. I didn't watch it until like the last 4 minutes when I saw it was close. I think the Mavs made a big comeback to get back in it, but maybe they just ran out of gas at the end.
Yeah, it was close when I watched the beginning. And then I saw the Jazz one this morning.
Yeah, tough to market that game without Luka, and then I figured the Jazz would kind of run away with that. I didn't really want to see
last game of the night.
Yeah, I was getting kind of tired from the day's festivities, and honestly, the last thing I wanted to do was sit down and watch Porzingis and Gobert duke it out in the post.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would blame me for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, not sure what we'll be talking about next week, but we'll try to keep it interesting. I don't know if the league goes on a delay. Like I've heard kind of discussed. I don't think they will, but we can always do some historic stuff. So
Silver said they're not considering it as of right now.
There's no reason to. I mean, what if they delay it for a week or two? Like, what difference is that going to make? Like, guys, as soon as they come back, we're going to be having COVID all over again. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have something good to talk about. I kind of actually, I guess what we could talk about is like, what is the most important position in basketball? Because I feel like the centers have kind of come back and kind of reopen that conversation from just being like point guard as it was like 10 years ago. And then it kind of moved to wing. And I think it's an interesting debate.
Yeah, that could get controversial.
Yeah, sure. I think so. All righty. Well, join us next week for that and probably some other topics. We'll see what happens in the league.